Are you wondering what happens next after you get your Tesla solar panels installed? Today I'm breaking down the final steps on how to activate, monitor, and start seeing some real savings because of your solar panels. Plus, I'll share some real life results and I'll let you know my opinions on if I feel Tesla solar is worth it or not. This is part 3 in this video series, so if you haven't done so, make sure you check out parts 1 and 2 before you watch this video. That'll help make sure you're up to speed on where we are with the project. Last time we left off, my project had been rejected multiple times by my local authorities. The main cause of this was a discrepancy between Tesla and the energy company. This is because in the beginning stages of my application process, we were allowed to use rough estimates based off of previous usage history, but somewhere along the lines, the energy company actually wanted Tesla to provide engineering calculations to make sure the size of my system really matched the needs and demand. Things were at a standstill for multiple weeks. It got to the point where I actually had to get involved and kind of somewhat be the middle person between both. I ended up sending an email pretty much reminding both of them that, hey, I'm a customer of both of you guys, and I didn't feel like either one of them was representing my best interests. I offered to actually get the 3 of us on a call so that way we can actually just try to work through it and figure out how can we get the system essentially to the state that we could turn it off. I'd say a week or so after I sent that email, the energy company actually finally sent somebody out to my house to do an inspection. It was at this point in time the guy replaced both power meters that I had outside the house, so the temporary one that Tesla had put in place, as well as the power meter that was already on the house. Later on that evening, I got an email from Tesla saying that we finally got permission to operate from the energy company. Because my system was up and running and just not connected to the grid, Tesla was actually able to turn my system on remote. It was at this point I realized that even though my system had been on for several months, it actually had been throttled down a little bit. This was done because without permission to operate, if my solar panels would have generated too much energy, there would have been no place for that excess energy to go. So for that reason, one of the power meters that was installed on the house actually kind of throttled the system down, so it could not output too much power during this period of time that we were waiting for permission to operate. Now with everything fully functional, it's time to cover one of the best selling features for me and why I picked Tesla over the competitors is the Tesla app. All right, to get things started, first thing we're going to do is open up the Tesla app. With the app open, the first thing it's going to do is default to the vehicle. So what we're going to do is actually switch over to what we have as my home. So in this configuration, which you could see at the time of this recording, it's in the evening. So my solar panels are actually producing 0 kilowatts of energy. My house is consuming 1.7 kilowatts. And right now with the power wall is what's actually powering my house. So in this main tab, there's a couple of things that you're going to look at. Energy. So what this tab does is it's going to show me how much energy was generated today. There's a tab here for impact. Looking at today's date, I'm 61% self-powered. Even though I generated 44.7 kilowatts, I exceeded that number. We're no longer in the peak summer, so we're not producing as much solar during the day. Then there's a settings tab where you can make some minor adjustments. There's a button here where you could technically go off grid, support tab, and then documentation tab. With that, I'm going to click the energy tab. And what this graph is going to show here is there's a couple buttons at the bottom that you could select. I like this view. So in this example, I kind of just described how I used 48.6 kilowatts. What this is showing me, that's the entire house. That's what we've used for the day so far. So 27% of that energy came from the power walls, the batteries that I have. 46% is from what we generated with our solar panels through the sun. And then the grid, so the electrical company provided at this point 12.6 kilowatts of our energy consumption. Just click the power wall, shows something very similar, shows that 13.4 kilowatts of energy were discharged, meaning we used it. We also charged the power walls with 20.9 kilowatts of energy produced by our solar panels. The chart at the bottom also shows us the level and how the power walls produce it during the day, consume it in the evening. Next tab here that we're going to cover, again, this is just looking at today's view, kind of seeing the same flow here. Is we start roughly around 6 o'clock in the morning. We can see that there was no solar energy really being produced prior to that period of time. We started to increase. We can see here on the graph that the energy is getting higher. It's elevating throughout the day. Right around this period, somewhere between 1-2 o'clock, we peak, and then we can start to see things start to trail back off. We were no longer producing any solar with the panels today. So here, if we click the impact tab, one of the things that you do when you first set your system up is you can select your energy company. If you don't, you can customize it. And what you do is for different parts of the day, different hours, you can put roughly how many cents per kilowatt your energy company actually charges you. And all that does is it gets it a little bit more accurate for you to determine how much energy you're going to be offsetting. In my case, what I could see for the time that I've had it installed, I can see that I have been roughly 49% self-powered for this chunk of the year. Hopefully we do a little bit better than that next year. And out of that 49%, 38% I was able to produce with my solar panels. 11% of energy that I produced I was able to put in the power walls, and the remaining difference between those, 51%, is what I got from the grid. So as far as dollars, again, this is just estimating. Overall for the entire year, based off of how much solar we've produced, I have saved roughly $1,526 in energy that I've produced with panels sitting on top of my roof. What this is showing is an offset of roughly 49% for the year. So what I'm actually going to do here is kind of to show that differently. I'm going to go back to the energy tab, and if I select year up top as opposed to days, what we can see then is for the year 2024, the total amount of energy used for my entire home is 21.3 megawatts. It shows me the chart there where I can see the breakdown per month. What I can see in this view, 11% of my energy, 2.4 megawatts, was consumed with the power walls. The solar panels themselves used 8.4 megawatts, and I got 50% from the grid at 10.5 megawatts. So again, I love the app because it's simple when you need it to be, and then you can also tweak things and really dive into the data if you want. As far as the overall settings, I'm not going to cover this too much, but in here, this is the section where you will do things such as customizing your power wall. You have the option to pick how low you want your power wall to get throughout the day. There's a couple different strategies here. So again, I don't want to recommend anything just yet because I'm still trying to play around with that and dial things in. But currently how I have things set is I will let my power walls get as low as 20% throughout the evening. So that means ideally before the sun goes down, power walls at 100%. We can use up to 80% of that energy throughout the evening to power the house up. And once we get to 20%, if we still need to consume more power at that point, the system will automatically switch over and pull from the grid and get that energy from the energy company. So that's where I have it set right now. Again, I can't say that I actually recommend that for anybody just yet because I'm trying to dial that setting in. You also have the ability to charge on solar. So if you have the Tesla system, as well as you have the power walls, once everything is activated and you're on a certain software level for everything, and you're 100% ready to have the permission to operate, you then have the ability to charge on solar. What that means is you simply plug up your cable into your vehicle, and then if your energy is above a certain level, as far as what you're producing from your solar panels, if your power walls are either full or whatever level you have it set with, the extra energy that you produce, instead of you sending it back to the grid for, let's say, fractions of a cent back to the energy company, the system can automatically take that excess energy and divert it right to charging your vehicle. So the other option here is Stormwatch. For the most part, Stormwatch, all you do is enable it or disable it. What that does is it allows the system that if it's enabled, it will automatically check your local weather patterns, and if it detects that a storm is indeed coming, if your power walls are, let's say like mine, we're at 20%, this is giving the system essentially permission to override that setting, and in the event that a storm is coming, it will slowly charge your power walls up to 100% before the storm gets there, so that way you have the most amount of energy possible in the event that you were actually going to have a power outage. So that is one thing that I do recommend you turn on and you keep that on. I'll follow up in the future with a video once I've had a little bit more time and exposure with the system and we've gone through all 4 seasons as far as what settings I recommend depending on certain scenarios. But we need a little bit more time with the system to feel confident that I'm giving the overall best recommendation for you all. All in all, this has been one heck of a journey. It's taken about 8 months, but I finally have a fully functioning system. With good planning and effort, depending on where you live, if you figure this project is going to take, somewhere in the neighborhood on average of 6 to 8 months, really the fall is like a good time to get this project started. You do the math, if you were to start in the fall, depending on what month it is, there's a good chance that, somewhere in that 6 to 8 months later, you're going to have a fully functioning system. You'll go through all the permitting and everything right before prime time, peak summer months, which ideally you want to take advantage of the summer as much as possible. Overall, do I think I made the right decision? Answer's pretty clear. The answer is yes. So far, I'm very happy with the overall install, the quality of the components, the ease of the system, and just overall how it's performed to date. I really love the integration with the app. It can be a little bit intimidating. It takes a little while to get used to, but I really like how they have things laid out. And I also like that you have the ability to make things as simple or as complex as you really want to. They've really done a good job in building in that level of user interface so you can get really whatever results you want to get out of the app. Do I have any regrets, or are there any things that I would do different? In the moment, I really only have one. I only went with 2 power walls to get things going. The more that I think about it and the more that I understand kind of the limitations of the system and kind of overall what the house is using, I kind of wish I maybe would have doubled that number and went with 4 power walls instead of 2, but that would have been extremely costly. Overall, just the more power walls that you have, assuming that they're charged to 100%, in the event that you were to have a power outage, you'll be able to stay self-powered longer. The nice thing, however, is this system is scalable. So if I really get to the point where I feel like I just shorted myself and I really want to get those extra 2 power walls, that's something where I can start that process, work with Tesla and get additional power walls added at a later date. Thank you for sharing this journey with me and allowing me to talk about my results and experiences with this Tesla solar project. It's really hard to try to jam 8 months of experience into a couple of videos. So please leave comments. Love to respond to them. I love to answer any questions or things that I may have left out because this was 8 months. I'm sure there's some things that came up that I didn't cover that you might be interested in. So don't be bashful. Leave those comments. With that, please consider subscribing and make sure you don't miss out on future content. Until next time.